Today I will be testing the rate speeds of all of the F-15s at top tier, as well as the F-16 and the Flanker. We're testing their rate speeds at sea level. The testing parameters are half fuel, no payload, and they will each be using manual control with trim rating. So the maximum performance of the airframe itself.
Pull up, pull up, pull up. Overgy. 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 Pull up. Overgy. Overgy.
So I know it looks like we're getting more than 21 degrees per second, but that's not true because we are losing speed. The results cannot be taken if we are gaining or losing speed because that is not our maximum pull at that speed. If we're losing speed, we're pulling too much. If we're gaining speed, we're not pulling enough. We are only going to take the results when we stop losing speed. So this is our result here. It looks like it is 20 degrees per second at 523 knots at sea level. So we're going to consider the margin of error to be like half a degree per second. Sometimes when you're rating like even a little bit above sea level, you can squeeze out a little bit more. Or if your altitude is fluctuating a little bit, you're going up and down, it can fluctuate. But that should not affect this more than half a degree per second. It shouldn't affect it nearly as much, but to call it safe, we'll call it plus or minus half a degree per second. The results at the end of the video you'll see are pretty conclusive, even with that large of a margin.
Pull up, pull up. Overgy, overgy. Overgy, overgy. Overgy, overgy. Overgy, overgy. Overgy, overgy. Overgy, overgy.
So guys, I know there was a little bit of fluctuation there, but that's because there was a change in altitude. So we were pulling more. We were pulling like 20.5 degrees per second, but saying roughly the same speed. That's fake news, guys. We were going down. So I took the results when we were back to level flight, which ended up being 20.1 within the margin of error. So we're pretty much equal to the F-15C and the F-15E. Okay, so the tests for the F-16C were very interesting. Originally, I got a maximum turn rate of it was at Mach 0.93 and it was 18.6, and I was like, wow, okay. But I wasn't really surprised by that number because the F-16C just feels like a much worse rate fighter than the F-15. I know this because I've played both aircraft extensively, and the F-16C, it just runs away from you. You can't pull enough. But as I was reviewing the footage and making this video, I noticed that I was getting like 20.3 degrees per second at like Mach 0.86, but I was like losing a tiny bit of speed. Well, it turns out I just did like a shit ton more testing. If you're going at Mach 0.81, you can squeeze 21 degrees per second out of it. At sea level, this is 535 knots, around there. It is incredibly hard to do. You have to fuck with your trim so much that I don't think that it will ever happen in a real fight. You'd hit the ground, or they would turn and do something by the time you got this figured out. Um, it, it's just incredibly difficult to do.
Предельная перегрузка. Предельная перегрузка. Предельная перегрузка. Предельная перегрузка. Предельная перегрузка. Предельная перегрузка.
Okay, so let's just run through these results real quick and then we'll talk about them. So, the F-16C is the winner, although this is a competition for second place because the Gripen exists. 21 degrees per second. The Flanker gets 20.8 degrees per second. The F-15E gets 20.1, and the F-15C gets 20.0. Okay, that's the data. Now let's talk about what it actually means, because it's two different stories that we're seeing here. Okay, so on paper, the F-16C is better. In practice, it is the worst. Why? Why is the F-16 the worst? It gets the most degrees per second. Well, first of all, this is all within the margin of error, although I am pretty confident in the order of these results, except for with the F-15s. I think those are basically equal. But the F-16C is by far the least forgiving, ironically. The F-16C being the most forgiving in its normal flight regime. But the F-16C is actually the least forgiving at trim rating, because you are... it requires a significant amount of effort to get it above 20.0. So 20 degrees per second seems to be kind of limit. The original result for this test was it was actually 18.6, but I had to redo that because I noticed that I could squeeze out a little bit more if I tried a little harder. And after a long time of fiddling with things, I ended up getting it when you're traveling at Mach 0.86. You can get it up to 21 degrees per second, give or take 0.1, right? So in a real match, that's never going to happen. In a real fight, that's never going to happen, because you have to keep track of your opponent. You cannot constantly have your eyes on the speed for 3 whole minutes like I did, trying to get that exactly right and have it happen at the same speed. You have to have your trim setting perfect and your speed perfect in order for this to work. So realistically, I'd say you can squeeze in a real fight about 20 degrees per second out of it. The F-16 is by far the least practical trim rater. And the Flanker is actually the easiest. So it goes in terms of what you're likely to see in an actual fight between them. The Flanker's on top. Then is both of the F-15s, although the F-15C is a little bit more forgiving than the E. The E tends to run away from you a little bit, and it's harder to get back under control because it has less AOA to work with. So the Flanker, the F-15C, the F-15E, and then the F-16C. That's the order that I'd put these in as far as practicality goes. So, yeah, those are the results. That's what I think they mean. If you guys would like me to test other aircraft, go ahead and let me know which aircraft you want to see me test next. I'm going to put out another video kind of discussing some ramifications of these results. Yeah, if any of you guys have the Gripen, I would very, very much like to see what that thing can do. So join my Discord. All of you join my Discord. But if you have the Gripen and you can do this test especially, join the Discord, record the test, and send it to me, please. Thank you very much. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.